What's up, everyone? Andrew Baina here at 42 Gear Street with my good buddy Mendel once again. Last year what we did was we compared some deathcore versus death metal riffs with a nice fancy title that made you click on it. So we're calling this that again. This time it's a little different. We're not being as strict with deathcore versus death metal riffs specifically, but at the end of the day, I don't know, at this point I guess I consider myself pretty much a deathcore guitarist, and for the most part I would say you still are a death metal guitarist, so it still applies. It's not clickbait, I swear, we're professionals. But pretty much the concept for today's video is instead of teaching each other riffs, we're just going to be showing each other what riffs kind of inspired us on our journey,
right.
Or more or less like the riffs that we go back to time and time again. I'm sure you're the same way as me, where anytime I pick up a new guitar, you have like 2 or 3 go-to riffs.
That's it.
So basically that. So we're just going to be going back and forth between the two and maybe talking about each one a bit.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Cool. Did you have anything you wanted to add before we get into it?
No. You're a sexy man. You go off.
Thanks, man. I have 3 riffs in mind. The first one that I want to play is from Born of Osiris, and the song is called Brace Legs. It's a bit of a lengthy riff because it's one of those weird ones where it kind of doesn't really repeat ever. It just happens once. But for whatever reason, when my brain heard that when I was like 15, I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
Right.
Normally it's in drop C tuning. I'm going to be playing it in drop A anyways because I'm too lazy to switch guitars right now. And I think it sounds like this. I might be playing it wrong, of course. And that's it.
Oh, dude, that's sick.
Yeah, it's
that's
fun.
That's a good riff.
Yeah, and it kind of has everything, right? So it has a little bit of tapping, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and pinch harmonics, and alternate picking. It's a little faster than stuff that I normally play.
Right.
Not anywhere compared to what you're about to do, but regardless, I don't know, it's just kind of a good one to make sure that all of my fingers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And,
I'm just curious, like, what drew you to this riff? Was this the riff or song where you're like, holy shit, like, what's happening here? Or
yeah, it kind of just... at this point in time, I don't think I had really heard a riff like this, especially not one that I felt was like attainable, I guess is the best way to put it. Because I had heard crazy music, probably like some stuff you're about to play, where it seemed like so outside of the realm of possibility that it was like intimidating to me, where I was like, I don't even know where to begin with learning this. Whereas this riff is still crazy, but I could tell I'm like, I think I can play this to speed, and I think I can do everything they're doing. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like flashy and impressive to play, but not impossible.
I think it's still flashy.
Yeah, but it's not, it's like a attainable flashiness is the best way I could put it. Especially when I was, just learning too. I liked playing stuff where I was like, I wanted to feel like I progressed when I played guitar.
Right.
I didn't like sitting there and playing the same thing for like over and over and over and just being like, I'm getting nowhere. It still sounds like shit at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So this was a nice one where I was like, it's challenging, but I still think I got it within like a couple of hours. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's all I got to say about that one. It's a fun one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Give me the cable. All right. So for me, this is not one of the first riffs I ever learned, but it was one of those riffs that's not difficult to play, but it sounds really heavy. It's the Stillborn one from Necrophagist. I remember when I started out, like I first got into, mainly into Muse, and then later some heavier stuff. But I remember when that album came out, Epitaph, it's called, in 2004. I just remember it was like so original. I heard nothing like it. It's like classical influences into it and some dissonance and very, very techy stuff. And I guess that was for me the moment, like that mind blow moment, because like I was, besides riffing, I was also like really, really into that fast shreddy stuff. Mm-hmm. Like back then, big fan of Malmsteen and Michael Romeo from Symphony X, and Necrophagist had like the fast technical death metal element to it, but also a very neoclassical element to it and the solos and stuff. But this riff, I remember, it just blew my mind. So it's not the most difficult riff.
He says, and I'm like, ugh.
Okay. Oh, no, that's the other riff. I'll save that. So, so because there's secretly 2 riffs. Okay. So this is the Stillborn one, which goes like. Just that. And I think this is something that's also done in deathcore.
Yeah.
Then in drop tuning, so more of like.
Yeah. Exactly.
So the other one, and I can't play it really good anymore, but the other song is, I guess, the most famous song called Stab Wound, which goes like, I'll try to do the intro a tiny bit correct. So let me see. Just this. That is so distinctive. So for me it was like, probably downloaded somewhere illegally, but
yeah.
like have it on your headphones and like what's happening here, like mind blown.
I remember hearing that for the first time as well when I was younger, and that's an example of the opposite of what I was talking about, where I heard that and I was like, that's crazy, but it does sounds like inhuman to me.
Oh right.
Where for me, instead of being motivated to try it, I was like, that sounds impossible. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, that riff is iconic, obviously. Like, anytime you hear that intro riff, you're like, yeah, I know that song.
Sure, cool.
Even if you've only listened to it once, like, it's one of those songs you don't forget, because you're just like, how is this possible?
Right, like the blast, it was something so new, so original. Yeah, so that's, for me, like, Stillborn 1 and Stab Wound, like, riffs I still play often. Mm-hmm. Even if I totally screwed it up now. But, yeah, riffs that are dear to my heart.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I also liked the was it the first one you said, Stillborn?
Yeah.
Okay. I liked the, like, kind of, like, the hang note. Yeah, that was... I love that stuff when it hangs on the note, like, a little bit longer than you think it's going to. You're like, it makes it sound...
almost groovy.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you that, like, sense of, like, tension and relief when you expect it to go to the next note and it doesn't, and you're kind of like, and then it goes there. It's cool.
Right.
I love that stuff.
The cool thing about this, some riffs are just very simple on the album. There's this second part which just goes like. Like these weird parts, but again, something I've never heard. Mm-hmm. I've never heard someone doing this in a song. That stuff.
That's so cool.
It's just so.
So he's just like punching the bridge, basically.
I think when I saw him live, which is years ago, mm-hmm. I think just like the trim. Then this ridiculous riff comes and goes like. Something like that.
Sure, yeah. Sorry, is that what you would consider like neoclassical? Is that where that term comes from?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. Yeah,
Cool.
Just this, like neoclassical is mainly, for me at least, the Baroque period of classical music.
Okay.
So that's like Bach, Mozart, and mainly Bach, Mozart. I think Beethoven was more towards like Romantic era, but stuff like when I think neoclassical, you have a lot of. The kind of stuff that. Yeah. Those kind of chord progressions.
Yeah.
That's very neoclassical.
Very cool. Okay, so the next riff that I wanted to show you is a very, very simple one. It's from Chelsea Grin, one of my favorite deathcore bands. Yeah, they're an awesome band. They've been around for a long time. They're one of the OGs in deathcore. They've had a lot of lineup changes and a lot of different kind of styles. Their newest iteration of Chelsea Grin is shamelessly ripped off by my band Carcosa. We basically listened to their 2018 album on repeat and kind of just were like, yeah, that's the style of music we want to write. But before then, I started listening to them a little bit later on in their career, maybe like 2012.
Okay.
So it was after they were kind of already fairly well known. And for whatever reason, I had never really listened to them, even though I really liked Suicide Silence and Whitechapel.
Okay. Yeah.
Just one of those things where for some reason, just, I don't know, didn't come around to them until a bit later. And then I heard this riff, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to learn way more about this band right now. And the song is called My Damnation from Chelsea Grin. It's so easy to play. You can play it on any drop tuning, and it will always sound evil, and I love it. It's dissonant as hell, and I love dissonant things. But So simple,
Jesus.
but it just sounds so evil.
Gnarly.
Yeah. You know, and for whatever reason, every time I pick up a guitar that's in any drop tuning, it sounds heavy in drop D, drop A, drop E, anything. And that's when you know it's definitely an awesome riff when it doesn't matter what it's tuned to.
It sounds so mean.
It just sounds evil.
Evil,
and
that's
I love it. Yeah. And yeah, it's a really, really simple one to play. For whatever reason, that was the riff that finally convinced me, like, oh, I should definitely be checking this band out. And now I absolutely love them and definitely shamelessly copy them. Steven knows that, so it's fine. It's fine. We're all good.
We're all good. Okay, cool.
But yeah, I don't really know why I like that riff so much other than the fact that it just sounds so heavy and it's not really doing that much. And it's nice that it's not just like fully relying on open chugging. Because the thing with a lot of deathcore riffs that I really like is like if you play it out of context of the full song, it's kind of like it doesn't really hit the same.
A bit boring.
Because it's like, yeah, you need, you know, if you just play a breakdown with none of the backing instruments, it's kind of like, okay.
But it's cool to just play it by yourself, but then the whole band comes in.
For sure. But I just mean, like, if you're sitting here in this context in a room without all that stuff, it's kind of like, it doesn't really sound like a riff. Whereas that one is just as heavy as any breakdown and still sounds great as a standalone guitar riff, and I like that a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I got to say about that one. My Damnation is sick. You should definitely go listen to it if you haven't heard it yet.
Oh, I'll check it out.
Let's get you in there again.
That's what she said. All right, so a band I really like, especially also when growing up, is a band called Decapitated.
Mm-hmm.
Vog, if you're seeing this, man, love your playing. But I'll never forget, I think this was in the earlier days of YouTube or somewhere mid-2000 or early 2010s, I can't remember. But the song, fuck, I forgot the title of the song.
This is Spheres of Madness.
No.
That's the only song name I know from them.
It's Spheres of Madness. Yeah, Spheres of Madness is one. But I remember, like one thing that's very, in my what I think is very death metal is like 16 trem picking for like stuff like I don't know to make it evil. That kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. And I remember when I saw the video clip for the Decapitated song. But it's just like just Vog with awesome lighting. And he plays this trem picking riff. And I was like, okay, I gotta go practice this stuff because this is insane. So I'll probably screw it up big time. But it's just like, just to show you this, like a riff that's very inspired by playing. And also in a boarded, this is something I really like to incorporate. For one, it was already the sound of a board to have trem picking, but also it's something I really liked. Also with Vader. Do you know the band Vader?
I've heard of them. I'm not as familiar, but yeah.
From Poland, they also do a lot of trem picking. But this riff is just two notes basically, but the rhythm part is insane. So I'll try to do my best. Not fully warmed up, but so I'll probably ruin it.
I'm just watching your picking hand on the monitor, which you guys can't see, and I'm just like, fuck,
okay.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
I love watching you just...
Okay, so I'll do my best. God damn it, again! God damn it! Okay, cut. Give me 1 second. Okay, so it's a bit harder than I thought in standard tuning because the bounce feels different. But let's try it again. Something like that. Just now ruined it. But in that vein, it's when you hear it on that song Crim plays drums and like he follows the riff with like the ride and the bell hits and the kick drum. It's just so phenomenal. And there's also a lot of like octaves in it, like. And personally, I'm a big fan of using octaves in metal in general, but also in death metal because it's so clear. We have the bass guitar and just kind of stuff. Like, do you know the band Hate Eternal?
Again, heard of them. Not as familiar though.
Goodness.
I know. I'm the worst.
Okay. No, but like just the clarity of octaves of like that kind of stuff, this weird stuff. But the clarity of octaves in the Decapitated songs, like I know the mix is perfect. It's sounds thick, inspiring. So that's something that's inspired me a lot.
Sweet, yeah. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to sort of what I was saying with the last riff too, where when you throw in like octave stuff, it helps add that sense of like tension and relief.
Yes.
Where it's like so heavy, and then you have this like bright open chord that you can clearly hear, and then back to the heavy stuff. It's always cool. Deathcore does that all the time too.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's important. That stuff that isn't heavy is just as important as the heavy stuff. Otherwise, nothing would be heavy. I think I said that last time.
I think you said
the same thing. I'm not smart enough to claim that I invented the quote, but it was something like, if everything's heavy, nothing is heavy.
Yeah.
It's I don't remember who said that. I'm sorry.
It's almost the same thing. There is no darkness without light.
Sure, yeah.
Third riff from Andrew?
Yeah, so I'm going to actually switch guitars really quick. Okay, so I switched over to an 8-string because one of the biggest things for me learning guitar was the first time I heard an 8-string guitar, which ironically was not from Meshuggah like most people. The first time I heard an 8-string was actually from After the Burial. Oh, right. I vividly remember it. You know how there are some songs that just you're like, I know the first time I heard this because it was just like mind blowing.
And at a certain spot.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't play the one that I heard first, but I can play a different one for the same reason I was explaining earlier. When I looked at the guitar tabs, I was like, what is that? I'm going to learn one of their easier songs instead. But regardless, the first time I heard After the Burial, there's this really infamous website called ultimateguitar.com.
Of course.
Which I'm sure if anyone plays guitar, you've probably been there. That's, at least when I was growing up especially, that was like the only place you could find sort of reliable tabs.
Yeah.
Anyways,
sort of.
Yeah. And they would basically also post articles on their site. They probably still do. And at the end of each year, they, of course, like everyone else, would do like top 10 metal albums of whatever year. This might have been 2008 or something like that. And on this list, I would always read them to find new bands. And one of them was After the Burial Rare Form. And I'd never heard of them before. And they linked the song Berserker. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
Course.
Okay. Yeah. So I heard that and I was like, whoa, that's really fast. And then halfway through the song, all of a sudden there's this really low note where I was like, I've never heard anything that's that low in my life before. And it just blew my mind. And that just continued me on this rabbit hole I was already going on where I just wanted to tune lower and lower and lower. And now here we are. But yeah, that was the first time I ever heard like a low F note. And I was just like, I don't know what that is, how you do that, but I need to figure it out. And hence, now I play 8 strings. Shout out to After the Burial and rest in peace, Justin Lowe. But yeah, the first song I heard was Berserker, and I looked at the tab, and I was like, nope, that's not going to happen. No. So I listened to the whole album, and one of my favorite riffs from that album is so easy to play, and it perfectly ties in with what you were just talking about with octaves. Mm-hmm. It's a song called Aspiration.
Okay.
Dead simple. It's literally that. It's so simple, but again, just having that, especially something that's that heavy, but still kind of has this almost like major key feel, where it doesn't feel evil and scary. It's heavy, but almost like hopeful, I guess is the best way I would put it.
The fun thing is, I one, I remember that riff, and two, we were talking about when you first heard it in the spot. I actually remember because it was my first US tour. With Aborted in 2012 or 2013, and I went to a store called what's like the big electronic store in the US?
Best Buy.
Yeah. And I was just going like through the metal section, and it was there like that album with that song on it for like I don't know like $5 or something, and I just put it on like in the bus and like oh my goodness, this is heavy shit. But
also, they have a lot of like weird major key elements where like it sounds kind of like happy almost. They're a very interesting band, especially for playing 8 strings and doing heavy stuff. They're one of the few that I've ever heard that do a good job of balancing like both styles. It's just cool stuff. I really liked it, and the first time I heard that, I was like, oh my god, I need to learn that. Ironically, it's only like 4 notes, 5 notes. It's very simple.
It doesn't matter how many
but
notes
like
it is.
It's an iconic riff that I will never forget. I'm going to really quickly play a couple more just because they're all really easy like that.
Do it. I'm down.
There was that one, and then a couple years later they released their the next album called In Dreams. And again, very simple song, only uses, I don't know, 3 notes, but... So simple.
I
but
remember
like,
that riff as well. It's so funny.
yeah,
Awesome.
like, man, if you can write a riff that only uses a couple notes, it's so sick. And that's definitely a riff that I play when I'm sound checking live with my band now. I do that all the time just because it's so fun. And I think it like very directly influenced my playing style because I do a lot of like slidey riffs.
Yeah, right.
And I think a lot of that influence came from After the Burial.
Yeah, there's a lot of sliding in that one.
That's this riff in particular, but all over After the Burial's music, they do a lot of like weird slidey stuff that I think is so fun.
You got more?
There's one quick one that I was also going to do. This is not After the Burial, because after I heard After the Burial and I started like, oh my god, this band is amazing, blah, 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 then everyone was like, how have you not heard of Meshuggah? And then I listened to Meshuggah and I was like, now I see.
Like Valhalla opens
Yeah. And obviously all their riffs are like shockingly difficult, because a lot of them sound like... And it's like, oh, how hard can that be? It's 2 notes, but it's like...
The timing.
Yeah,
and
good luck
the
memorizing.
accents, yeah.
So... The one that I was the most proud of, I've learned a lot of Meshuggah riffs and then instantly forgot them because like they're impossible to memorize forever. But one that I did memorize was Dancers to a Discordant System.
Yeah.
It's the final track, I think, off of Obzin, which was the first album I heard from them.
Good album.
And it's one of those riffs that pissed me off because it's so hard to play, but I had to play it so many times over and over and over again that it's just ingrained in my memory and I can't forget it now.
Good.
So... I like just forced myself to do it, which I don't normally do. Normally I do what I did with After the Burial, where I'm like, this riff's too hard, I'll just learn an easier one. Mm-hmm. But with Meshuggah, I'm like, well, there is no easier ones. They're all hard. So fuck it. I'm just going to commit to learning this one.
Good.
And that's like 3.5 bars or something. And it repeats 3 times. The thing that makes Meshuggah confusing, of course, is they use these weird time signatures and then just like force it to be 4/4, so they end up repeating this odd amount of times. That doesn't matter. That's not the point of this video. That riff in particular is my favorite Meshuggah riff, and it took me so long to memorize that, even though it doesn't sound that hard. Just like figuring out where the accents were is like a nightmare.
The patterns.
Yeah. But once you learn it, hopefully you'll never forget it. So those are my 3 kind of like quick fire riffs that made me want to get an 8-string guitar. From both of those 2 bands. So
sick.
All 3 of those, because they're nice and simple. Well, except for the Meshuggah one.
Cool. I got a couple left.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I talked a tiny bit about this band earlier, Symphony X.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I know it's not a death metal band, but like the riffing and soloing has influenced me like big time. The guitar player is Michael Romeo. And this riff, I also forgot the title of the song, but you probably add it in there. This is like I remember the first time I heard it is from the album called Paradise Lost.
Okay.
That I remember. And just like, also when we talk about like location, you guys probably have the same thing. Like the first time you heard the song, you were at a certain location, maybe in front of your CD player, or like when you had it on Spotify at a certain place. This was in my car, I just bought it from the CD store, then driving back, and then like this riff came in. I was like, I can't imagine how groovy it's like. It's almost bluesy, and there's some distant stuff in there. So I'll try to do it justice.
That's sick.
I know that whole. I would say
so fast too.
It's almost like Pantera-ish.
Mm-hmm.
That like took me a long time to get that. Like the
vibrato.
The vibrato in there, nice. So that I remember just. First time hearing that, and I have like this cool groovy drums in it, and the vocals are like a pirate man with an apple in his throat. It just very inspiring. Mm-hmm. Then another riff, I mean, like how can we do a metal video without Metallica in it?
Fair.
Metallica, big influence. I guess almost for all of us. I'm not sure. So how is it for you, Metallica? What's your opinion about it?
I mean, here's the thing. They're actually one of the only, if not the only, I call them classic metal or boomer metal bands that I actually enjoy. Which some people get a little upset about me, or upset at me about that. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but for whatever reason, Metallica is the only of that era that I actually enjoyed. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. Like, I never got into like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Slayer, Pantera even. Which Pantera's the weird one people trip out about because they're like, how do you not like them? They basically invented breakdowns. I get that, but for whatever reason, Metallica, they were the ones that I was like, yeah, I still like this.
Wait, let's backtrack a tiny bit. I'm fully with you on Judas Priest, nothing for me. Megadeth even, nothing for me.
Yeah, same. Not a fan.
But then you said the band Pantera. Like, do you...
This is exactly the reaction I knew that was going to happen.
What the hell? But do you like some Pantera songs, or...
I mean... Not.
Do you know some songs?
I know them. Like, I've heard them.
No, I know. Do you know some songs?
Like, how to play? Or how to listen? Yeah. I mean, like, I could... If I heard, like, Walk or whatever, like, obviously I'd be like, that's
when I play...
Yeah. God Rest from Hell. Like, I get it. It's just, I don't know. For whatever reason, I never got into them. One of my best friends at home, Eric, he is obsessed with them. So I hear them all the time. He has, like, literally the Dime Slime signed by everyone in the band. It was, like,
sick.
Ridiculous. But anyways, for whatever reason, I just couldn't get into them. I'm not sure if maybe it's the vocals or something.
It could be.
But, like, their riffs are definitely awesome and heavy and timeless. And I get all that, but I don't know. Just not for me for some reason.
Well,
I don't know that one.
Doesn't matter. Okay. Because last time, this guy, and I'm going to put him on the spot again, didn't know a band called Chimera. So now we're a year later. Did you at least listen to it a tiny bit?
I did give the album that you recommended a listen.
Resurrection, that's the album it's called.
Definitely sick riffs. Again, not quite my thing, but I can...
You're wrong.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding.
I can definitely see why you like them. And yeah, it was cool stuff. Just, I don't know. Just didn't do it for me. I don't know.
Check out the song Needle from Chimera. Okay, so it's two riffs from the same song. So on the album Master of Puppets, the last song is called Damage Incorporated.
Okay, yeah.
Or Damage Inc. And it's one of those moments when, for some reason, I was listening to the album for years, but somehow never gotten to the last track because it has this slow, like, reverted harmony kind of things. Like, it's kind of boring. I'll just jump back to Battery or, I don't know, like Sanitarium or something.
Intro's too long, bro.
Right. But then at a certain point, you, like, listen to the whole album, and then, like, it's like, you know a certain pathway, and you walk at the same time, and then suddenly, like, this whole new event happened. And that was definitely the case for me for this song. So after the whole intro, I have, like, cool riffs, but there are two riffs that are, in my opinion, really, really good, which is the main riff, which goes like... So that's the one, just that, the na-na, almost bluesy, very, very inspiring. But then in the middle of the song, you have like this thing again. And then he says like Damage Incorporated, and then the whole thing happened. I'm probably gonna fuck it up, but the thing went.
Now you definitely lost me.
Yeah. So that fast thrash metal, like headbangable stuff, big part of inspiring playing big time.
Well, it makes sense because you obviously incorporated so much trem picking in your riffage that it makes sense that obviously having thrash metal influences makes total sense because they're playing
a lot of gallops and triplets, yeah.
And I would imagine that obviously helped build up your picking speed and picking stamina.
I think so, yeah.
When you were starting.
Yeah.
Which is so cool and interesting because that makes way more sense why I to this day still feel like my trend picking is like one of my weakest areas.
I wouldn't say it's your weakest areas. I don't.
You're way worse at other stuff.
You suck at everything. Trend picking's pretty.
It's definitely not your worst area.
Yeah. So brutal.
No, that's funny as hell. But anyways, yeah, like I don't know. I learned some Metallica riffs and songs, but playing really fast stuff is still to this day I think pretty difficult for me.
But who cares?
No, it doesn't matter. I'm just it's interesting that
Okay.
like seeing your progression makes more sense now. It's not in a bad way either way. It's just it's interesting. Okay. Because you took a lot more time probably to learn stuff like that. So then it makes sense that from there you would go to trend picking and you already had that kind of basis of thrash metal that would obviously help with, speed picking or whatever you want to call it, trend picking.
Yeah, you might have a good point there. Yeah. It could be, I don't know. Cool.
I don't know. I'm not your teacher. What do I know? Cool. I think that's a good place to end it. Our memories are shot, but luckily we remember riffs for some reason. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that a riff is good if people like us can still remember that shit.
Agreed.
So, again, big thank you to Henning Pauly, 42 Gear Street, for hooking us up with this gear. For this video, by the way, we've been using these beautiful Ibanez guitars, the 8-string, baritone 6-string, and the lefty for Mendel. There's a bunch of other gear that's going to be on the screen right now. Big thank you to Henning Pauly, 42 Gear Street, all the sponsors of this event. It's a really good time. It was fun last year, even more fun this year. And of course, go check out Mendel's channel. He'll have a bunch of content from this event as well. And that's about all I have to say. Cool. Thanks for being with me. And that's it.
Cool.